Subterfuge. He's just getting you to the Accessibility Insights page.
Yeah, that was
Let's got that installed. Okay, we're at 1:15. So, hey everyone, and welcome to our session on the inclusive design journey for Windows 11 and beyond. We've got a few other things we're going to throw in the mix over the next hour. I'm just going to say at the very start of this session, this is informal. You know, this is not a Microsoft presentation, so please don't see it this way. If it had been, there is no way in the world I would have invited Adi Latif to chair.
because who said I'm chairing?
To join as a correspondent in this session. The reason Adi's here is, you know, we want this to be interactive, and I know nobody better than Adi to really kind of, you know, jump in and tease out a conversation. So I really want this not to be slick. Genuinely, and we're doing well so far. I want it to be humorous. I want it to be positive. I want there to be critique where it's appropriate. This is a chance for you to spend some time with us. And with that in mind, you know, my role at Microsoft, I'm the lead accessibility evangelist. Essentially, I'm the bridge to many organizations, to governments, to community organizations, but also to big business in terms of some of the deployment around accessibility and the work we're doing, making sure that people are leveraging the investments we make, if you think of it like that. But I don't code, I don't create the products, and that's why Jeremy's here. So hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Hector.
Introduce yourself. Yeah, I'll let you jump in and take the mic.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm stateside, so it's actually morning for me, and I know it's afternoon for many of you. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across the globe. I'm Jeremy Curry, and I am a support escalation engineer on the Enterprise Disability Answer Desk, or EDAD for short. And my job is basically to take large enterprises and be able to help them with all sorts of accessibility issues. Now, I'm rather new to this role. And prior to this, I was a senior program manager on the Windows accessibility team. And so many of the things that we're going to talk about today in Windows 11, I was directly involved with and helping create them and give input in. We'll be talking about Windows 11 being literally the most inclusively designed version of Windows. And I'm honored to have been a part of that as a person who is low vision and sometimes functionally blind, depending on the environment, to be able to give that lived experience and bring others into that experience and provide their feedback as well. And in true inclusive form, since I am low vision and I look at my screen about 2 inches from it, I'm likely to shut my camera off because otherwise, the rest of the time, everyone's just going to see the top of my head, which I don't think anyone really wants to see.
That's great, Jeremy. Thanks for doing that. Hey, Adi. A formal introduction, although I always assume everybody knows you.
Sure, thank you, Hector. Thank you for having me on this session. So I'm Adi Latif, currently working for AbilityNet. You might have heard of it, helping to organize this conference. So I work in digital accessibility. I help clients to try and embed digital accessibility in their organizations so that they begin to make inclusively designed products and services by default. I do have a disability myself. I'm registered as blind, and so I've been a long-term user of Windows with my screen reader JAWS, and so yeah, I'm pretty excited to hear about the work being done to make Windows more accessible. I guess I'm quite a critical voice as well, so anytime I do meet Hector, I always say, "Oh, can you fix this, or can you make that more accessible?" But underneath it all, I'm really happy with the direction that Microsoft is moving in, and so I'm really here to ask some questions and do some probing. But it'd be great, obviously, if everyone else can join in as well in the spirit of it all.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Adi. And yeah, Adi is just voice number one joining and asking questions. Please, Jeremy and I are both very happy to be interrupted in the flow. So there's something, put your hand up. We will, unmute yourself, join the conversation. Good. Let's crack on. I'm going to share my screen and enable audio so we can watch the videos as we go. And I'm jumping in to our presentation. I'll just turn these captions off because we're captioning. Okay, so obviously you'll have heard a lot through the conference about our mission to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. I think that people hear us say this and think it's an external message, but fundamentally it's not. It's printed on the back of every Microsoft employee's badge. And we're now sitting in a world where about 40% of every single 40% of the global employee base at Microsoft have now taken their accessibility in action badge and learned about disability and technology, which is huge for us. It's now also got us to the point where we're mandating accessibility training to all 187,000 Microsoft employees. It's been raised essentially as a conversation and as a topic to the same level as standards of business conduct, anti-bribery, fraud, etc. You know, we are now saying you have to take your accessibility training. And when that happens, people learn, and people learn more about what they can do to start delivering accessibility within their products, within their team. And so that leads us to the Windows team and the journey they've been on, and this rather bold statement that came out when we first released Windows 11. Some of you may have picked up on it in some of the marketing, but this is the most inclusively designed version of Windows. So Jeremy, I just want you to kind of maybe just give us some backdrop there in terms of how the Windows team were thinking about this and approaching this topic as Windows 11 was conceived.
Yeah, this has been an interesting journey because, as I mentioned, I myself am a person with a disability, and was helping to lead this effort. And we were really in on the ground level when we talk about design and the frameworks of how certain things are going to work in various components of Windows. And it was just such a wonderful piece of progress to see. I mean, Hector, you and I have both been in assistive technology for a couple decades. And so it's been just quite astounding to be able to see how far things have come. And in terms of Windows 11, you know, one of the things I think about before I came to Microsoft, I've been here about 3 years now. And when I was in assistive technology companies, you know, when a new version of Windows would come out, we kind of would hold our breath, and then something would come out, and then something would break, or you know, there was like a keystroke that had worked forever that didn't work anymore, right? And a lot of those things that I saw that usually came out and the third-party ATs fixed after Windows came out, we fixed a lot of those before Windows ever shipped. Now, I'm not going to say we're perfect. It's a journey, right? But it certainly was a huge step forward in terms of how we think about Windows and how we include people with disabilities inside of the design. We even have special boards because, as those of us with disabilities know, we often say there's nothing about us without us, excuse me. And being able to make sure that our voices are heard was really critical in this whole process.
I've sent it all to me.
Oh, sorry, we've got somebody else talking. Sorry, you. Okay, so thanks, Jeremy. I think that's exactly right, and I just wanted to maybe give. Jeremy's talked about how both of us have come from the world of assistive technology. How do those first few moments with Windows 11? A couple of things that really stood out to me in terms of how the Windows 11 team had approached it. The first one, honestly, was, well, obviously it's been rebranded. So we no longer have the Ease of Access Center, and we'll play a video in a moment where people talk about the thought process behind losing the Ease of Access Center and moving to a consistent messaging around accessibility. So you'll see this throughout, this accessibility, accessibility in Office, accessibility in Edge, accessibility in Windows, this sort of standardization of language. But the thing that, honestly, the first time I ever kind of downloaded that insider version and got playing with it, the first thing that jumped straight out of the page with me was just how front of house accessibility was. And it reminded me a little bit of the Xbox journey. So, when I'm a bit of a closet Forza Horizon player, Addy, you can have a laugh about that one. And like, as soon as you get that splash screen on Forza, you just see the accessibility button, and it's right there. It's boldly front and center. And you sort of sit there and think, well, why have our operating systems not got this bold front of house approach to accessibility? And I think for the first time ever, we're really getting there with that. So if you hit Windows key A and go into the Action Center, This is where you find your wireless LAN, right? Your Wi-Fi, your VPN, your Bluetooth, your volume settings, your screen brightness, and you now have your accessibility settings right there. So it gives you a little bit of a taste of 5 or 6 first, settings to quickly turn on and off. 5, sorry, magnifier, color filters, narrator, mono audio, sticky keys. It just sort of gives you a kind of a flavor of, there are accessibility settings on here, and then a button to go straight to more accessibility. So Jeremy, I just wanted to have a quick conversation about what was the journey to get permission, and I'm going to use that word, to put accessibility so boldly in the front of the product?
Yeah, years and years ago, Microsoft had changed, I think in Windows Vista, if I remember correctly, that we would use the term ease of access, right? And under ease of access, you would find narrator, magnifier, all the other first-party or built-in ATs that are there. And we've really been strongly listening to customer feedback, because that's again a critical component of inclusive design. And so we would do user research, and we would literally go to customers and we would say, what does ease of access mean to you? And some of them would go, ease of what? Like, ease of access to what? Ease of access to the internet? Ease of access to an app? Well, what does that mean? They literally had no idea what it meant. I mean, those of us who have been in the field forever maybe kind of have gotten familiar with the term, but it's just it's changed over the years. And accessibility has really become the industry standard in terms of what everyone is using. When you say accessibility, it doesn't matter if it's our products or a TV off the shelf at a big box store, right? You're seeing accessibility at the forefront. And so we changed it and completely rebranded it, not only from the terminology, but even from the icon itself. So it previously had like a little wheelchair icon. Now, there are people who can benefit from many of the things inside of accessibility, formerly ease of access, that may not identify as someone with a disability. So, for example, my father is, in his golden years, and sometimes he needs a little magnification, but he certainly doesn't identify as someone who's low vision. And so this makes it less stigmatizing. It's this encompassing all-person icon, and it comes at you from the beginning of installing Windows. So even in the out-of-box experience, or we call it OOBE, OOBE for short, you're going to see accessibility is right there, front and center. And you're going to see it on the lock screen. You're going to see it after you log in. And having it at the forefront, like Hector said, having the ability that as soon as you click on something just standard, like I want to connect to Wi-Fi, right, which we all do, it's right there at the front and center, and you can see it. And not only can you see those several different items that we have inside of the accessibility menu, but there's literally a link that says, open up the rest of these things, and you can go and click on those. And also in regards to the way we design some of the sounds. And so the sound scheme is much more inclusive than it's ever been. So, for example, why should someone like myself, who is blind or low vision, not be able to have some of the experience of the light mode and the dark mode? The sounds are literally different now, depending on which mode you're in, whether you're in light mode or you're in dark mode. So if I can see or can't see, I've got this immersive experience. Again, this all-inclusive design, really taking the forefront inside of Windows 11. And Hector, I think you've got even some of the old sounds to show us what they were like and then what they are today.
I'm going to admit to not having pre-checked this slide, so let's just try to go. So we'll hear some before and after sounds. So what you'll hear is some soft tones and then some of the harsher tones. And the harsher tones seem to be the ones that more you're associated with Windows 10. There's a lot of work went into the kind of the sense of comfort that you feel when you're in Windows 11. But really, we hope that they're still distinguishable, and hopefully, deliver their meaning in the right way. So each of these is playing a before and after. Sorry, let me just play another one. I'll share
I gotta tell you, Hector, I think until we made those sounds for Windows 11, like I didn't know the sounds agitated me until we had the new sounds, and now I hear the old ones and I get this like sense of anxiety all of a
I
sudden.
start to itch when when I hear that old USB disconnect connect sound. If I'm honest, everyone's had a USB at some point, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully that's a less.
I actually got worried. I thought my
experience.
battery was dying. I had to plug in my laptop there.
Apologies, Addy.
Can you clarify? Did you play the sounds? Sorry, I missed it. Did you play the sounds for Windows 11 there, or were they the
Yeah,
sounds for Windows?
let me go back. Hang on, let's do it again.
So it might have just been me, but
So let's just pause and listen to the sound, and then I'll explain it.
okay.
Right. So you heard first the Windows 11 sound, and then the old Windows 10 sound there.
Ah, the old one is the one after it,
So
right? Yes.
Let me do another one. So the new one followed by the old one. Oh, hang on, I'm going to go right back. Okay, here we go. Right, ready? I'll do it again. The new one and the old one. The new one and the old one. New one, old one. There's that USB. And the last one, new one, followed by old one. Yeah, so it's subtle, but we've got a lot of feedback that this should be a calming experience.
I was about to say that. Yeah, it's Mark
sorry,
here from the RNIB. Sorry, just to jump in. I was going to say it's a lot softer. It's not as sort of harsh. The old ones are sort of like boom, boom, and you're thinking, oh my god, what's going to happen? The new one's like, something's happened, and you're like, oh, okay, what's happened there? Okay, or I've just had that confirmation. It doesn't seem as sort of tense or as aggressive. I guess.
I agree with you, Mark. It's like in music, the older ones are like a sus chord almost, like something's about to happen. So I think. But quite a few of us just mentioned there's a little bit of anxiety provoking, but the newer ones are just like a calm kind of.
It's not going to say that some people will want to put the old sounds back, right? We're still going to see that, but yeah. Now I'm conscious of time. We've got quite a lot to cover, so we want to actually jump into Windows 11 pretty quickly. But let's just quickly talk about the new, obviously the start menu and how that's been designed. There's a few things in there. Definitely much more optimized for touch. Touch is going to be a much more enjoyable experience in Windows 11 than it was in Windows 10. We always thought of Windows 10 Touch as being something of a kind of an add-on, as opposed to kind of being designed in from the outset. So this new centralized start menu and this kind of populating central taskbar really works for touch. So that's probably one of the most visually obvious things you're going to see. But the next visual thing is the standard theme. So Jeremy, if you could just take us through that process.
Yeah, sure. And just real quickly, I want to touch something more on that start menu real quick. Somebody mentioned a bit ago, it's a bit more calming. And one of the goals of Windows 11 was literally to be more calm and more easy. And I don't know about you, but after the past almost 2 years, I could use some calm. And it's really one of the nice things about Windows 11, and having it centered in the start menu being centered really gives you this kind of sense of control. And you can put it back to the left if you want to, but you don't have to. And Hector, you were mentioning these themes. So again, when we think about inclusive design, it doesn't mean that we're designing for just one person. We're trying to design for everyone, right? So when we think about things like light sensitivity, like somebody like myself, I wear sunglasses all the time because I'm one of 12% of the global population that has light sensitivity. And so we have actually 6 different themes built in to Windows, 3 of them being dark and 3 of them being light themed. Now the dark themes can be great for people like me who are light sensitive, or people who have macular degeneration who usually have light sensitivity. It can also be great if maybe you're at bed at night and you don't want to bother the person next to you, or your family around you. You can just turn those back to the dark theme and have those go down. And there's also the light theme. Some people prefer those. I don't necessarily prefer them because they hurt my eyes a bit. But you can pick any of these 6 just gorgeous themes. They're really beautiful, and there's nothing stigmatizing about them. If you select one of the dark ones, like Hector has up on the screen right now, I think it's the moon or a planet or something. Mm-hmm. And it just looks nice without having to feel like without having to feel different, you know?
Jeremy,
So
how
that-
would people know they can do this? Like, how would they know they've got options like this? Is it just if they end up going to the actions toolbar that Hector mentioned, and then you click on accessibility? Is there any ways that you communicate this to users when they're using Windows who would never have thought of this?
It's been a while since I've used the out-of-a-box experience, but if I remember correctly, we even put it in like the initial setup, I think. And if not, somebody who is used to changing wallpapers, for example, or just general personalization, it's as easy as that. So it's like the stuff that's been around since Windows 95 in terms of, hey, do I want my system to look specific to something like me? You can go and change it just those exact same ways that, you know, we could in the past, except
Right.
that this is not just the wallpaper. It's like an all-inclusive experience.
Amazing. So it's in the same place where you would find stuff like that. They could adjust, make the adjustments.
I think,
Yep.
Addy, as well, there's also a kind of a mainstream movement around dark mode now. And so,
Yes.
so what you're starting to see is, you know, look at LinkedIn are doing it now, right? MS Docs have got the dark mode built into it. Office has it. You know, you got it on your iPhones, you're getting it, you know, in Chrome. You know, it's like it's become a much more standard expectation from a design perspective that you deliver great dark experiences. I use dark mode all the time on my devices. I promise you, the minute I go into light mode on Teams now, I'm just like, you know, again, I'm like, I just can't stay there for very long because my eyes just get a bit tired more easily. I just know that I want my dark mode available. So I think the discoverability of dark modes in particular, I think that's pretty. If you look in Office, for example, it's right there on the toolbar. You know, you can read a document, it comes on a white stationery, and you just switch modes to push that into a dark mode for reading. So I'd say there's a mainstream movement happening in terms of expecting a dark mode and a professional dark experience compared to light experience. I would argue as well, also the standard light experiences. I'll just put these here just for a second, Jeremy. But you know, even these are what I would call off-white, and you know, like a teal experience as opposed to like that really bright white experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one of the great things is, you know, I had the opportunity to work with the designers of these experiences as well as others with accessibility. And we wanted to display you a short video that actually talked about their perspective and how they thought of it. These people are just amazing. So Hector, do you mind playing that video for us?
Sure. Let's go.
John.
We certainly hear that there are things that we can do better and gaps that we need to close.
Giving a
We
presentation.
don't just want to stop there. We want to really push beyond closing gaps to delivering that delight across the board.
Natasha, designer.
No matter what your abilities are, to be able to use Windows like everyone else.
Juan.
Accessibility on Windows used to be called ease of
A
access.
settings menu.
We talked to people in our research studies and we're like, do you know what this means? And people are like, no, I don't know.
Carolina.
One of the things that we did is we changed the icon.
Julia.
And the most important thing is that people could discover the things that would help them use Windows better.
Typing on laptop.
You can't just go into it assuming you know who you're designing for.
In the accessibility community, there is a saying, nothing about us without us.
John uses a
The
wheelchair.
only way to solve these problems is by integrating deeply with the community of people that we're trying to serve.
We heard that contrast themes were kind of like a hammer. The aesthetics shouldn't have to be compromised just because you are someone who has light sensitivity.
A screen goes from black to white.
We are introducing them with new, beautiful colorways, a range of different contrast intensities.
From blue on gray to yellow
We
on
thought
black.
about, hey, there's a student who might have light sensitivity in a classroom and there's a cart of machines, and when they boot up, does their device look different than others?
We don't want accessibility to be an othering experience.
Windows 11 startup.
What's really unique about the startup sound, for some people with no vision, that's what they rely on to know that the computer's awake.
The difference between the sounds is that they will follow the visual personality of Windows. So a person who is blind can actually enjoy the same difference of the light and dark themes audibly.
It's really humbling to be able to see the impact that we're going to have in people's lived experiences.
Carolina smiles.
When someone with a disability starts using this new version of Windows, I hope that they feel a sense of belonging.
Windows. Microsoft.
I love that. These people are just absolutely amazing. One of the things that we don't often see is the people behind the scenes making this. When we think about inclusive design, one of the things that our Chief Product Officer, Panos Panay, says is that products are a reflection of the people who make them. And these people just have some great heart in what they're doing, and you can see that shining through this entire OS. Now, we've got on the screen, Hector's brought up the accessibility menu. Now, we have this rebrand. We also don't want to forego familiarity, right? And so if you are used to opening ease of access with Windows key U, guess what? You can still press Windows key U and you can bring it up. Accessibility is now more at the forefront. And similar to ease of access, we've still got several groups. We've got the vision group, we've got the hearing group, we have the interaction group. And so these groups make it easy to be able to define different things inside of accessibility. One of the things that we did is we made sure that all of this was very simple to use. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about is text size. We're going to go into text size. Now, I mentioned that I say very easy to use. In ease of access, it used to be that the very first thing was display. Well, the problem with display is there were like 3 menus inside of Windows, or 3 different menu settings that said display. So we would have people going to ease of access, clicking on display, trying to change their resolution, but that's not necessarily what it was. So we got rid of this gratuitous redundancy, and we made some great previews. So like Hector can literally take the slide and change the slider and increase or decrease the size of the text. And then once he decides, hey, this is about the size that's right for me, he can click on apply, and it's going to apply that text size across the system. And there will be this little screen curtain that comes up. It says, please wait. But now the text size has been changed across the system. And this is really cool. Hector's going to put this into a non-maximized state or a restored state. And as he adjusts the size of the windows, the settings here actually reflow with you, so you're not losing information. There's even a left-hand nav that actually turns into a hamburger menu when you make it smaller. It's really, really cool. And for people with low vision, sometimes this is a nice way to use this with magnifier, because everything then is like in a vertical grouping. It makes it very simplistic. So in terms of making this very simple for people, there's also a group of related settings. I mentioned display earlier. So under each setting, there's something called related settings. And it just so happens that display is under here under related settings. And if we were to go into that, we could find where we could change our resolution and change a lot of those things. And Hector, I know that you really enjoy having those related settings. It makes it pretty optimal for you. Is that right?
I think think of it like accessibility or assistive technology as a sort of prescription journey. People don't know what they're looking for. People don't know what setting they're looking for. And I think some of us who work in the accessibility space just assume that everyone knows the terminology, knows where to go. We've got to work harder for people who are new to accessibility, or who are just, heaven forbid, just the users of technology, to more easily discover the settings. So I love this idea that you find your first thing. Remember, you can use natural language to find your setting that you're after in Windows. But when you're using that natural language setting, you stumble across your first setting, and then it kind of helps you work down the page on your prescription. I think this is going to be, honestly, huge for us in terms of people more self-prescribing, and adjusting their experience.
When you talk about natural language setting, are you talking about the search feature?
Yeah. You have experience with it, Addy?
Within the start menu when you type in that, or
that's right, yeah. So start menu, or within Office, we now use natural language processing to essentially help you find the features you're after. So you can put in a similar word, and it will hopefully help you to find the setting you're after.
I love that, and because I struggle a little bit as a blind screen reader user to navigate the ribbons in Office. So I do lean on that, the Alt Q.
Alt Q, Addy, do you use Alt Q now?
I do, yes. I think you might have introduced me to that after I complained so many times about it. For any other blind or keyboard users, Alt Q is your friend.
It hopefully is, right? And actually, well, here's the other the journey. We're all on a journey with our technology, right? I always say to people, it's like most of us still use technology the way we did when we left school, left college, and don't. When was the last time you took PowerPoint training? Right? You just don't. Right? It's just not something people do. Right? It's just you just absorb information. I do think we need to work harder to find times for people to spend time on their personalization of technology, and put specific time in the workplace to just have conversations like this where we show people and just update them on what modern technology, and it sounds almost blasé, but I would argue we can't assume everyone knows that we've done this stuff. I'm going to talk about the Surface Adaptive Kit later, this new hardware that we've released, and I was joking with Addy before we started today. Like, Addy didn't know about it. I'm not embarrassing you, Addy, or anything, right? But you didn't know about it, and frankly, honestly, you're like the target audience for the Surface Adaptive Kit, and we didn't manage to reach you. So part of this is us spending deliberate time like we're doing today, just taking you through these options.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you point out, Hector, is some of the things that have been around that we might not know about. So, for example, magnifier has been around for a long period of time. We all know that it magnifies the screen, and it can help people with low vision. Or I shouldn't say we all know, but many of us know. So if we go into magnifier, one of the things you might not necessarily be aware of is that in more of the later versions of Windows 10, we actually added reading capabilities to magnifier, and they're simple. So Hector's going to go to a settings page, and he's going to do Control Alt left click and actually have magnifier start reading.
Start, pause, and resume reading. Reading shortcut plus enter stop reading. Any key. Read from mouse pointer. Reading shortcut plus left mouse click.
So these are the settings for the reading shortcut setting within magnifier. But essentially, while magnified, you can press that, you can Control Alt left click anywhere, and it will read any text across anywhere in Windows and beyond, right? So it's a lovely way to introduce somebody to a screen reader on top of the magnifier.
Yeah, and great for people who need to have less eye fatigue, like myself at the end of the day, or even, again, somebody who does not necessarily identify as someone with a disability. Maybe they just want to use just the speech and turn magnification way down, right? There's a whole bunch of situations here, and magnifier will track this. It will follow the viewport. Each word is highlighted as it's spoken. It's just a fantastic feature that we added, and something that I think we should definitely make sure that everyone's aware of inside of Windows 11, even though it was there in the later versions of Windows 10 as well.
And a move to a new operating system is also always a good opportunity to kind of go and explore. Yeah, people do explore when they upgrade, right, or when they buy a new laptop. So you may have had settings like this, be delivered to you through Windows 10 in work or at home, but obviously that new moment of Windows 11 is a great chance to spend some time on this.
Yeah, and the beautiful part about having this redesign is we can put in the little hints, right? Like there's 5 keys to be able to read in magnifier. Well, you don't have to go look it up in the manual. They're just all listed right there for you. You can just see them and then find the one you want. Off you go. We also changed some of the things inside of some of the other existing features. Like if we go back to accessibility and we look at mouse pointer, there are some now beautiful hero controls at the top. So you can still change your mouse pointer to a different color or different size. Some people, again, use this whether they identify as someone with a disability or not. Some people just like to change their mouse pointer color, for example, which is now just very easy to find. So if you just wanted your regular mouse pointer to be pink, like you could do that. It's all possible and easy to find. One thing that I really want to talk about pretty in depth here is something called contrast themes. So we're going to go back to the accessibility settings. You'll notice inside of the accessibility items, as you start to investigate Windows 11, you're not going to find something called high contrast. Instead, you'll find it rebranded as contrast themes. And as the video noted a little bit ago, when we did research, we found that when people were trying to turn on high contrast, it was just like a hammer and everything was flat. It was really hard to see. You felt completely different. And again, thinking back to this idea of an inclusive design perspective, we created 4 different new contrast themes. And we've got aquatic, we have something called desert, which is kind of like a high contrast white kind of. And we have dusk and night sky, even nice calming names. And so in here, it used to be that you would have to come and select one and actually apply it before you could see what happened. And part of the problem with that is if you have people like me, then all of a sudden, if you select the wrong one, you can't see anything because you blinded yourself. So Hector is on the combo box, and he's going to select aquatic, and then he can apply aquatic as the theme. And when he does that, we'll see that please wait screen curtain come up again as it applies across the entire system. The more windows you have open, the longer it takes to do this. There we go. Now we got aquatic. And it doesn't look like like John said, it's not an othering experience. And when you bring up windows, like I think Hector's in the start menu, and then I think he's going to bring up the calculator. You can see the borders now around these windows to make it so much easier. Because for people like me, I have almost no depth perception. And so these nice thick lines where it doesn't look so flat, it makes it so much easier to use. And let's suppose you want to make your own contrast theme. You've got the ability to edit them. So Hector's on aquatic. He activated the edit button. And there are several different items he can change, like background, text, hyperlink, and more. And he can change the color to whatever he wants. And I think you just change it to is that a green? This is my color blindness sticking in. Okay. Yeah. It's either green or blue. It's one of the two. And so he can change this, and I think he's given it a nice name. What do you call that, Hector?
I call it forest. It's like a nice Robin of Sherwood green.
It's very calming. So you can adjust it, make your own, and you can have all of these. You still have the default 4 themes, and you can customize your own as well. This is really something that we spent a lot of time on. In addition to some of these settings as far as accessibility goes, we're going to go ahead and turn off contrast themes. And we have something new called snap grids and snap, excuse me, I always give you that, yeah, snap grids and snap groups. We changed some of the naming during development, so I still want to think of the old name. So in the upper right-hand corner of any window, if you hover your mouse over the maximize button, it'll actually give you different ways to sort out your screen, different windows. Now, some of you are saying, well, I don't use the mouse. Oh, great. Windows key Z, or you always have to remind me, Hector, what's the non-American?
Windows key Z.
Windows key Z. I'm the minority in the room. The Americans, we'd say Windows Z, Windows Z, and this gives you the ability to actually create these groups. So if you have something side by side, you can immediately go back to it side by side, or however you like to have it set up without having to press different keys, different things. And
I don't know how a screen reader behaves with that, Jeremy. In terms of what you hear when you're moving between the different visual options.
It'll speak those. A screen reader user might not necessarily want to use these. I think it's more for mobility, because typically we're dealing with one screen at a time rather than multiple screens.
Okay.
But for mobility, it can be a great idea. And also, once you've selected a certain item, and again, thinking back to mobility, not having to change the setup of your windows, once you've defined a layout, you can actually have that layout remembered. So Hector's got calculator next to settings right now. And if he wanted to go back to it, he could just hover over top of where that is in his taskbar, and it shows, and he could just click on that, and it would bring that layout right back up without having to do anything. You can also get there with a keyboard with Windows T and going to the taskbar and doing it via the keyboard. But for mobility purposes, I think this is a really great way to be able to provide better options. And yeah, go ahead, Hector.
No, just saying, the other thing to remember as well, if somebody is using multiple screens, if you have windows arranged in certain places on multiple screens, as soon as you redock your PC now, it will remember those settings and push everything back to where it sat previously. So just another nice ease of access, setting, right? Or a really nice experience for people. Not an accessibility setting, but a really nice feature.
Yeah, and thinking more about mobility, we also changed touch keyboards. So when we think about touch keyboards, they only used to be in like a light theme or a dark theme. And now when you open up touch keyboards, we actually have the ability to select different colors. Again, inclusively designed. Why should we only have 2 options? And not only that, inside of touch keyboard, but inside of touch keyboard, there's this new voice typing feature. Hector, do you want to tell us about this? This is like one of my favorite features
Before
of
we
Windows
get
11.
there, I just want to make sure that everyone using a touch keyboard also knows that you now have your emojis, your GIFs, or GIFs for Americans. Is it Jeremy? GIFs or GIFs?
I think it's supposed to be GIFs.
It's GIFs. It's GIFs. It's always GIFs. But you also have your clipboard history. So Windows key V has been your clipboard history for some time in Windows 10. So through a day, the amount of copying and pasting you do, I've just done a fresh restart on my PC before we started. But essentially, the number of copying and pasting that you do, Windows key V has been around for a while, but it wasn't discoverable.
I never knew that at all. That would have been a lifesaver.
This was the moment I rehearsed for, Addy. The bit where I get to kind of get your jaw to drop on screen is like I live for those moments. Windows key V has been around for a while, not easily discoverable. You've got to kind of know.
Clearly.
Somebody's got to have told you. But now that it's in the touch keyboard, people know that clipboard history exists, right? And so you'll see all the things you've copied through a day and then paste them in. So really efficient for somebody with a physical disability as well. But as Jeremy says, honestly, I would say the hero demo for the Windows 11 accessibility experience is probably voice typing. So let's have a go at that, shall we?
That is what I'm looking forward to, actually. Yeah.
So it's in your touch keyboard. So essentially, you've got a little microphone here in the keyboard. The other thing you can do with the keyboards now is you can resize them, recolor them, create lots of nice visual experiences with it. But we put a kind of a nice high contrast, low vis, dark option here today. As soon as I type, press here, I can start typing directly into my document and the words are just appearing on the page. Now, these are appearing with no auto punctuation, I believe. You'll see that it's kind of flowing as I talk naturally, but when I stop, we'll start to see the words appear on the page.
So you've just got one gigantic run-on sentence in a Word document that has no...
Sorry, I did leave the auto punctuation on from last time. So I'll show you in the settings here. You've got an option here to turn on auto punctuation. What we've done essentially is really improved voice typing. It's not dictation, I would argue, and I don't think it's not computer control, but it's that experience that people now expect from modern technology, that you've just got great voice typing. So this is this is not even an accessibility setting really, Jeremy. It's a mainstream inclusive design setting, isn't it? But the thing that makes it so much more usable and more trustworthy, I would argue, for a much wider group of people is just this auto punctuation accuracy.
I'm sorry, a couple of quick questions there, Hector. Is it something that's do you need internet connectivity for that, or is it done locally?
You need internet connectivity for this.
You do need, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And for what we're seeing here on screen, Addy, just so you know, is that it's like perfectly typed, it's perfectly punctuated. It will recognize question marks let's show you the next setting, the Windows key H option. So if I shut down my touch keyboard, I'll go back into this document and I'll hit Windows key H. And now what we see here is a much smaller interface on the screen. It's just floating around. I'll bring it up so we can actually see it as I type. Sometimes I want to ask a question, so I might say, hey, Eddie, how has your day been? No, it's called you Eddie, not Addy.
You need to work on that.
Well, actually, but when I said that, it gave a different one that said ADDY, not ADI.
That's close enough.
But what you'll see is that you're just getting a much more reliable experience. But that Windows key H option is the one that you need to learn, Addy.
That is amazing, and I love the fact it made a noise when dictation started, and I think you just did it there, and it gave you a slightly different tone to show you it's.
And I've also set up what's called the voice typing launcher. So that means that whenever I click in a text box, it comes up and reminds me that it's available. Now that's also super interesting from a mainstream application. There are moments where voice typing is just more appropriate than others. So if you think of something like a Teams chat, it's like really appropriate in a Teams chat, isn't it, to just dictate that rather than type it? Yeah, because you're not so worried about the grammar. Yeah, if you're typing, a formal document, a legal document, then of course you want it to be absolutely perfect. But so I think what we're going to see here is people are going to start adopting voice typing more routinely for certain tasks and not others. But it's definitely worth a go. And that voice typing launcher setting is a good way to get people to increase the discoverability of it.
I
And
think
Eddie,
the fact that most people sort of work from home nowadays, there's more chance that you would dictate. You know, being a keyboard user, being blind, I'm using keyboard all the time. I'm using the arrow keys to go up and down to have my screen reader read. So there's a lot of muscles being used, and if I'm at home, I'd feel more comfortable just dictating to using the dictate feature than if I was sitting, you know, in the office with other people. So I think it's a feature that people will probably use a little bit more. I think it would be better if at some point it can have a facility to process it locally. So you know, if you don't have internet access at some point, it could still do that. That'd be quite nice.
And Eddie, I think one thing that I really appreciate, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, is it's really good at homophones. So like when we hear speech, you know, no matter what screen reader it is that you're using on Windows 11, because it could be third party, it could be first party. Homophones like the word it's or its, right? There's IT''s or ITS. And it's correctly identifying the correct usage of the word, or even like there, or there. Which there do you use depending on which one you're going at? They all sound the same, but they're spelled differently. And you know, I think it's fantastic that it'll just recognize that in terms of context and process it the way it's supposed to.
Yeah,
Talking
I think
about
that would be a big improvement, especially for my spelling. I never went to Bishop Briggs, the posh school. Hector went to a regular private school, public school. So
I went to a regular public school for most of my education. Thanks, Eddie. Just another quick reminder then, a Windows 10 feature that many people have missed is word prediction while using a hardware keyboard. Number of people I show this to and they're like, oh wow, like how did I not know about this? So within the typing settings of Windows, you can have the same word prediction that we know and love from touch keyboards available to you all the time through the just from hardware keyboard. It gives you essentially 3 options above your word as you're typing, and then you can use your arrow keys to navigate between them. Okay, right. I want us to pivot slightly. I want to open the floor up for Q&A very quickly, just to make sure that if anyone has any burning questions, while we've got Jeremy here, not while you've got me here, but while we've got somebody who is on Disability Answer Desk, who knows the product teams at Windows, you know, intimately. Any burning questions that you have to ask, Addy, you might want to kick us off.
I was going to say,
Please,
I've got one.
someone else. Yeah, go for it, please.
I've got one. It's Mark here from RNIB's Technology for Life team. Brilliant presentation so far, guys. This is the highlight of the 2 days for me personally. And when I'm deciding what and when and how to get Windows 11, whether to do it as a works machine or a gaming rig or a hybrid thing, I think the voice typing is really cool. I think the keyboard is lovely. I think it also gives people another option to try that and see if it's right for them. And we can tell customers before they go and sort of drop 140, 150 pounds on something like Dragon. And obviously Dragon can do an awful lot, but there is a lot more sort of tuning. So that's really cool, and thank you for that. My real question is in relation to the magnifier as a magnifier user. Are there any other sort of major differences, major sort of pulls between Windows 10 magnifier and Windows 11? Obviously, you've shown some stuff in terms of sort of using the interface on different programs.
You picked my favorite topic. Thank you.
Well, I did read your keynotes in advance, you see.
I love it. The features that you'll find in Windows 10, at least the latest version of Windows 10, are essentially the same as what we have inside of Windows 11. There was a servicing fix we even put out inside of Windows 10. So like if you had Windows 10 with all the latest updates, and then you also used it with Windows 11, the functionality is going to be the same. I will note, however, though, that in the settings, so for example, Hector has the settings up here currently. One of the things, like I would literally read customer feedback every single day, and one thing that would come up all the time is users would say, hey, I want the ability to change magnifier not only 100 to 200%, but like, 100 to 125% or something like that. And so in the settings, we actually made these increments. So you can change. You can easily see those. So if you look just below where Hector's at currently, or maybe you're already in there.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're
I'm
not.
in there.
Go to the one below that, Hector.
The one below. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the
There
one
we
with
go.
the increments.
Oh, you were in
Yeah.
the increments.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. That's what I get for not being able to see too well. The increments here, like there's 5%, 10%, 25%. These have always been there. But one of the things we tried to do with Windows 11 was make things more discoverable. And so when you open this up, this is one of the things that you see within the top few items of the list. And the design thinking was, hey, we're constantly getting this feedback. Let's see if we can try and to address this issue that we've been getting, for a long, long time. And so these are things that we thought about as we went through and trying to redesign all of the different settings.
Jeremy, what about the centering piece? That's another one that seems to come up a lot.
Yeah, so good point. So inside of Magnifier, we changed the default we added functionality and we changed the default later in Windows 10, same with Windows 11. A lot of people, like myself, have issues trying to find things on the screen because, as those of you with low vision likely know, there can be blind spots that you don't even know exist, or you're just trying to find certain things. So it used to be that when you were typing, the little thin 1 pixel black line that we call the text cursor, it used to just stay within inside the edges of Magnifier, and it would move the viewport around, the magnified viewport around, as it got close to the edges. Well, myself, and I noticed with many others, one of the problems with that is you're constantly having to get your head close to the screen, move your head to the left, move your head to the right. And so what we did is we actually changed the default behavior so that the text cursor actually follows in the center now by default. So when you magnify and you're typing, you can look basically in one spot on the screen most of the time and be able to have that text tracked right in the center without having to move your head back and forth. And many of you are well aware you'll get neck pain and shoulder pain by trying to do that all of the time. And this was another way to try and make it easier. And again, something that we did in later versions of Windows 10 that are also included in Windows 11.
That will save my eyes, and it will save probably some parts of my neck and shoulders and everything else as we're sat, and because we're not, we're working at home more, we're not moving around as much. So, yeah, thank you for that, Jeremy. That would be very useful and useful to tell customers. Yes.
Just a question. So do you use like a third-party magnification software at the moment?
I do. Look at you going straight in for the kill.
Yeah,
I don't know if I should say this because this could be recorded. But yeah, I'm a Zoom text user primarily. There we go. The cat is out of the bag. But I've used a lot. I've been born with my condition, nystagmus, and I've trained a lot of people over the years. Obviously, not as many as you guys. But I've always tried to guide people on obviously the options through the market, what's natively built in.
My question to you, Mark, is do you ever see yourself not needing something like Zoom Text? Do you think in the ideal world and you could use Windows out the box without relying on a third-party software? Because I'm a screen reader user software and I still rely on a third-party software, and I would love Windows to get to that space where we can just use it out the box without relying on a third-party software. So I don't know if Jeremy or and your thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Mark. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for making me part of the conversation. So the answer is yes for personal. So when I get my new super rig for my 40th next year, the wife and the family have said they'll put towards it, and I get my shiny new thing of Windows 11. For gaming, which is I'm a huge gaming fan. I've got my new Xbox behind me. I absolutely love it, but that's another conversation for another day. And when I'm playing on the PC accessibility and with the Xbox, sort of the apps and Game Pass and everything else linked in there, and I'm doing my general surfing. Yeah, it's when I'm working on quite large documents, quite large reports, multiple systems. I think I'm going to need ZT's power and probably familiarization for third-party databases, where I'm not saying Microsoft can't do it, but I trust the third-party stuff just to be a bit more a little bit more polished, because it's outside the Windows interface, and it's more of a trust element that they can hold it up on their end, and they've told you about it and you've worked with them, rather than you guys would necessarily fall over or lag behind.
Well, and we've got to respect that people love their assistive technology. We're not. We've got to make sure that we iteratively improve the Windows experience, particularly for people who've not managed to find third party. But we've also got to keep up the investment in the assistive technology world to make sure that the next big thing comes from the assistive technology space. It's not always going to be big tech that does this, and shouldn't be. Just everyone knows I used to work for Tobii Dynavox doing eye control, and it's like we've got to make sure that the next coolest thing in eye control is coming down the track, and that the innovators who love that and live that experience every day are thinking of new ways of doing it. I mean, I just think this is not. I don't think we're ever going to get to a world where there is not cool innovation on the Windows, on the Windows platform for third-party AT. I mean, we've got to love that.
Yeah, and it's important. We work with those partners very closely. And Mark, you don't offend me at all when you say you're a Zoom Text user. I used to be one of the product managers for Zoom Text. So like I'm glad it's working for you. And part of the hope is that the first party will, the built-in stuff will satisfy a need for what other people are doing too. But like Hector said, it's important to make sure that we still work closely with our partners like that, because we rely on it. Without it, we can't use our technology day in and day out, whether it's third party or first party. It's just got to work.
Absolutely. In terms of internally, I think it's like a fine wine. It's getting better on each generation, and the work is phenomenal across the whole sector. As I say, I'm really excited to pick up 11. It's just that, I guess it's just that confidence that if you've gone into that third party database, you've gone into that third party system, is it going to be able to image smooth on, when you're moving quickly between a sub record or a layout of a page? Is it going to be able to actually send you to the right place quickly without any screen issues? I know that's obviously graphics, memory, your general processor, your whole build is going to be tested. It's just that. So I guess I'm interested to see as a customer, and I'm also interested to see as someone who advocates this conversation and recommends the accessibility team and the support on a daily basis. So hey, if you guys want to send me a free copy, then yeah, all for that.
Mark, this is great.
What a fantastic segue, because we only have minutes left, and I need to tell you about
Sorry, thank you.
The prize for TechShare Pro. So we have got Microsoft Prize to give away, and this is the kind of the move into it. One thing I just wanted to quickly share with you is hardware, and we've heard about the Xbox Adaptive Controller through the conference. Heard from Phil Spencer, frankly, like last night. I mean, what amazing that was. But we're starting to see now the Surface hardware team also think about how do they iterate on accessibility. And Addy and I were again smiling about this pre-show today. We announced earlier this year the Surface Adaptive Kit, which is essentially a series of peripheral additions to Surface to essentially make the hardware more accessible to, for people to customize their experience, recognizing that no two people are the same in terms of how they want to personalize their hardware. So these kits have a selection of keyboard bumpers, translucent stickers, tactile stickers, essentially for your keys, for you to put them on your shortcut keys, the ones that you want to very quickly locate on your device. Instead of using glue dots, Addy, right? But glue dots are kind of where we took our inspiration from on this. This will be on the shelf next to the Surface, in stores around the world. So this idea that accessibility is front of house is also coming into hardware. There's also lanyards for people, with mobility disabilities to be able to kind of customize the experience for opening the lid or pushing back the kickstand. There are also high-vis tactile cable loops for you to be able to find where you plug something in visually, and tactile, so you can feel that you're matching up your laptop to your cable very quickly and visibly. So we're going to finish, and I'm sorry we're going to finish on time, with the announcement for the Swaggable part of this, which is Catherine, who I'm looking to my left, is going to join very quickly and share how people can win an even bigger prize from Microsoft during TechShare Pro. Over to you, Catherine.
So, Hector, thank you for that. I'm just sharing this.
Catherine can't hear you.
still on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. So we, when we were organising TechShare Pro, we wanted to provide some virtual swag for all you wonderful attendees. All our sponsors and partners want to give you lots of goodies to say thank you. And we scoured the universe for an accessible platform, and none existed. So in a weak moment, I suggested that I would just build an accessible virtual swag bag platform, and the idea for Swagable was born. And today, for the very first time, and you are the very first people we are telling this, we are launching Swagable with some fantastic offers from this year's partners at TechShare Pro. It is a beta website. We'll be sharing this afternoon a link round to all attendees, so how you can get your hands on it very quickly. You'll come to the landing page. There's a registration tab at the bottom, not showing here because I've registered and logged in. And then you can view all the swag. Microsoft, unbelievably amazing, generous offer, the chance to win a Microsoft hybrid laptop bundle and a Surface Adaptive kit. The bundle is worth over £1,600. I know everybody here would probably be desperate to get your hands on one. And then an additional 9 Surface Adaptive kits, as Hector said, not available currently, but they'll be shipped out to you. If you follow the descriptions and look at the T's and C's, with a chance to win, we'll contact the lucky winners a bit later on in the year. There's lots of other stuff there as well. I know we're up against time, so I'll end it there, but look out for the Swagable email that's going to land in your inboxes, and do share the feedback with us. It's a brand new platform, it's beta, so we want to hear your feedback. Thanks, Hector.
Amazing.
Thanks, Catherine. So great place to end. I mean, we want, just so you know, you will be the first people in the world to get your hands on these Surface Adaptive kits, or certainly in Europe, because I'm waiting for the personal shipment to come to me, and I'm going to make sure that you get it, Catherine. So yeah, we really want feedback on it. We want you to you as our cherished audience on accessibility, the real advocates out there, to kind of to get your hands on these kits and to share them out. Just so you know, that kit's going to be like £15 or €10 or something. I haven't seen the RFP, if I'm honest. It's going to be low cost, available next to the Surface when you buy it, and it just goes to this piece about we've got to normalize accessibility in assistive technology. It's got to be highly discoverable, highly available, easy to find out about. And hopefully that's some of what you've heard from us today on Windows 11, right? Jeremy, thanks so much for getting up and joining us. Although you're only 5 hours behind us. Thank you, Addy, for being my Jiminy Cricket, my conscience, who sits on calls with me and pokes me when I'm saying things that are overconfident and belligerent. I cherish the relationship with you as well. And let's go back to the main show next, is it?
Pleasure, Hector.
Oh, another session. Jump to your next session, please. I'll stay in here for anybody who wants to stay on and Q&A or chat.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.